Our expert panelists joining us today are Dr. Richard Palmquist, integrative veterinarian and owner of Centinela Animal Hospital. He's an author, lecturer, and teacher. Dr. Christina Chambreau, internationally known homeopathic veterinarian, lecturer, and teacher. Joan Ranquet, animal communicator, teacher, author, lecturer, and owner of Communication with All Life University. And Brendan Golia, professional pet trainer, behavior expert, and owner of OC Canine Coaching. Welcome to Smart Pet Talk. I'm your host, Anna DeVere.
We have made it back home to Los Angeles.
Wings of Rescue is a Band-Aid. We are not the solution. The solution is spay-neuter.
It's so amazing to see so many people wanting to change things and wanting to help and wanting to get involved.
To me, dogs are unfettered love walking around on this planet. They are love going, you guys could do better. Let me show you how.
Our documentary journey began in 2016, and it is now coming to a close. But the work will continue.
In this special episode, we're excited to be joined by Jacqueline Pinol. Jackie is a full-time actress known for her roles in Spider-Man, Bosch, and American Horror Story. Her passion for volunteering with nonprofit dog rescues began when she adopted a dog named Dublin from a city shelter. Witnessing the heartbreaking conditions of many abandoned dogs, she traveled the country to document the issue. This led to the creation of a 14-episode docuseries titled The Canine Condition, highlighting efforts to end dog homelessness and abuse. Through her 8-year journey, Jackie discovered solutions to reduce the overpopulation of homeless dogs and started her own nonprofit organization to further the cause. Welcome, Jackie. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you for your amazing work, too. Dr. Palmquist, I know you have a question right off the bat.
Well, I just wanted to say I've known Jackie for over a decade in a lot of different aspects, as a client, as a friend, as a donor, actually, for our foundation. So she's one of those people that I say art is love made visible, and Jackie's about as visible as they get. She does a tremendous amount of different things, from rescuing dogs to doing this documentary. And I really watched this project develop over a decade. And so I'm excited to talk to you in front of a larger crowd of people today and really just have you talk about sort of the beginnings of that journey, how it progressed, and then, what you've learned from it and what kind of policies we can make a change. That's kind of an arc for a whole show, but let's just get this thing started and see where it goes.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. I am so excited to have a conversation with each of you because of your different expertise in areas that encompass the whole picture for each pet, each companion animal. I will tell you to start that the reason this journey is so strange or different for me and for a lot of my family members is because I didn't grow up with pets and I was afraid of dogs my whole life until I was in my early 20s. So, it was that accidental, like the German Shepherd bit my leg by accident. And from then on, all my years growing up, I would cross the street if I saw a big dog. I would stay away from the littles because I thought they were going to get my ankles. Like it was that kind of a journey. And now I can't imagine not having multiple dogs in my home. I foster, I transport, I volunteer. Obviously, I have a pack of my own. And my son, who is 8 years old, has had, 4 minimum in the home because of the, rotating foster dogs since he was born. So it's been quite the journey and what a life-changing experience to open up to something that I never, ever imagined would come into my path.
And Dublin's just the sweetest, was just the sweetest angel of a large kind of pit bullish type dog. So good with everybody.
Yes.
So kind.
Yes. And so my husband and I, we had pugs as our first dogs. Pugs seem to be, they kind of help break the ice for me when I first got my pug. They're harmless and kind of funny. And so they just kind of helped me go, oh, okay, I can do this. And I got my first pug alone as an adult, as a puppy, because also that helped break the ice for me. I didn't know about rescue back then. It was very early on, 2002, I think. Yeah, 2002. So for me, that was my first experience. And then after my husband and I got together and we had another pug together, we got one. Then we found the big dog. She came into our lives and she wasn't going to have it any other way. She's I think she's like a Great Dane Pit Bull mixed type. And we found her roaming the streets. We took her to a shelter. She was not microchipped. She was not fixed, but we left her there thinking, gosh, surely somebody's looking for this beautiful dog. I would be. And I would check in with the city shelter every day for 2 weeks and nobody. So after 2 weeks, she was made available and adoptable to the public. And there was no interest in her. And because they have to euthanize for space when shelters are full, they did call me and they said, I can put you on a first call list. Now, I've never heard of any of this. I don't know what any of it means at that time. So I said, what does that mean? And I thought they were going to call me first when the adopter showed up. I was like, yeah. So I remember the girl and she said, well, if we have to euthanize, this is the breed that we euthanize first. And we would call you first to let you know in case you want to adopt her. And I said, oh, so that was very eye-opening for me. I definitely wasn't going to let that happen. So I definitely took steps, and that's how I found rescue. I found out that nonprofit organizations will allow you to foster a dog and help you get the dog seen. They will vet the dog so you can save that life and hopefully find the forever home.
And isn't that wonderful? There's sort of two ways that people are about the entire problem of overpopulation with animals and unhomed animals.
Mm-hmm.
And one is to focus on how horrible it is. And I think that was sort of like how we approached ending hunger with the kids with the big bellies and all of that. And it triggers sort of an immediate, I want to help and do something, but not that long-term sustainability. And I think that you've actually come up with, so we could start with how bad it is, or we could actually start on the other end with some of the solutions. So how do we, what are some of the solutions in terms of, give us one to start with.
Yeah, I think one of the solutions was, and the easiest, because not everyone can take on, for example, what we took on, or not everyone can foster. My eyes opened up to just rescue in general. And I thought, what are the parts of rescue that need the most help? And how can we entice people to help even a tiny bit, a little bit, right?
Yes.
So some people can donate, some people can volunteer, some people can do a transport on a Saturday or a Sunday from a shelter to the foster's home, or from the foster to the vet, because the foster works. So my eyes opened up to the fact that, let me connect with a rescue organization that is near me, that is licensed, that is, doing everything by the books, because you do have to check them out. That was a big thing for me. And offer my time and my availability and say, look, this is when I'm free and this is how much I can or can't do. If that works for you, please let me know.
And sometimes this can be, it's every single person can do something, even if you don't have the time. You may know of a group that might, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. Just if you like to fly, there are a number of pilots who donate their time to fly rescue dogs around. And I mean, I was a pilot. I flew for about 6 years, and we love to, it was so much fun to go get that $100 hamburger because you were just having fun. And so when you can turn people on to making a difference with that, or if people are runners, how can they maybe encourage somebody or do it themselves to sponsor a run? So it's not to look at how can I do something different that will help, but what is it that I'm already doing that I love? Right. That will make a difference. I bet you've got some good stories of some examples of what people have done.
All kinds of stuff that I learned that I had no idea you could do.
Like?
Well, I was doing a series. I was filming a video game that also had a live action TV show attached to it years ago in Georgia. And we were in Atlanta, so we would have a lot of night shoots. And so our Friday nights, we were up till, Saturday, 5 a.m. And then we'd be off Saturday, Sunday, Monday. That's when I was like, oh, I wonder what the shelters are like in Georgia. I was just curious. And I drove about 2 hours south to a town named Dublin because my dog was named Dublin. And I had heard of Dublin, and I had sort of tried to help long distance by sending small little donations here and there to the shelter, or ordering a bag of food online from, a lot of times, Costco or Chewy. You can order a bag of dog food and then just have it shipped to the shelter or the rescue. So I would do things like that. And when I drove down there, I realized there's a network of rescue organizations and licensed transport services that drive dogs that are fully vetted and ready for adoption from Georgia to the Northeast. And that happens on weekends. So eventually, when I was done with my shoot and I had a weekend off, I'm like, I can rent a car. I can drive out to Pennsylvania or New York or New Jersey, where these dogs would be going. And my husband came to join me. I had a week off, and he goes, let's do a transport. We just thought it was a fun adventure, a road trip opportunity for us. And we'd get to take a dog, and we got to take two. We took a brindle pit bull mix from the Dublin shelter and a little gray puppy pit bull from another rescue in Atlanta up to Pennsylvania. And it was,
and isn't that
the adventures
perfect?
were so fun. Yeah.
And, we have Joan Ranquet with us, who's not only an animal communicator and teaching thousands to do this. When you're driving animals around, when you're working with animals in the shelter, one thing everybody could learn to do, Joan, chime in. They could learn to do animal communication. And how would that help with these drives and the animals in the shelter?
I think in addition to animal communication, I always say that we're all communicating. I don't know that anybody needs to learn it, but to trust that you are communicating, I think is the main thing. And more than receiving information from an animal, I think it's about sending information and letting them know that they're safe and this is going to be a fun adventure, and all of the things that I'm sure that you and your husband did on that first trip. But the other thing that is worth learning is EFT, emotional freedom technique, tapping on the dog with the emotional freedom technique, the sequence of points on specific acupressure points. And that's a very powerful thing to do. And this one was flown here by a pilot that loves to fly dogs around. And I've done a lot of EFT on her because she's still a little traumatized from that airplane. But anyway, I think that's that there's so much that I actually have a thing called the Shelter Initiative within my school. I have an animal communication and energy healing school. And so we have a program. We did the pilot program last year at a shelter in Michigan where we taught animal communication and EFT to the staff and volunteers, and all the animals that we worked on got adopted. So now we're growing with this, and I've done it at a lot of other shelters in Florida and all over. So,
oh, that's amazing. And that now that you say Florida, some of the things I learned too is that, some people can't do what we did. They're not going to go on a road trip interstate and stuff, but they'll take legs of a journey. And from between Georgia and Florida, the rescue will put together a plan and say, from this exit to this exit on such highway, 1 hour. And then they'll sign people up who live near those areas. And you can take 1 hour of your day on a Saturday or Sunday, pick up the dog, and then you hand it to the next transporter. And they post on social media, which today, that's such the beauty of social media, the positives of it that I find in animal rescue and is that you can volunteer and be like, hi guys, we're here with little Zoe, and then everyone gets involved. Sometimes we would find that by the end of the dog's travel journey, it had applications already with the organization because of the shares on social media of the dog being transported, showing that it was easy to handle, or if it was scared or nervous, what it needed, because, not every dog is, just ready, but who was ready for that dog and to help that dog transition into its new home. Gosh, I learned so many things, and I've made lifelong friends with people all over the country who I feel are like family, who I could go to their house or they could come to mine. And they have, we have, because of dogs that we met and either adopted out or sponsored together.
I just want to say, as a pet guardian, I love the options that both Joan has talked about. I've seen some of the videos of Joan's work. And as a pet guardian, nothing keeps me away from the shelter just more than knowing the heartache I'm going to experience when I walk in. If you've ever had a lost pet and you've had to go there, but I just love that you're expressing all these hope and options. I mean, that's what Smart Pet Talk is really about. But thank you for putting this positive spin on it. I want to ask you, Jackie, what can people expect when they watch your docuseries? Are we going to get into like the difficult subject there? And because you're obviously a master at and winning at drawing people in where they can help. And I love your work, but what can we expect from the docuseries?
Thank you. So, that was my goal was, and it was not easy, which is why it took this many years. I had never launched my own project of this nature. And I was told it's going to take you like 7 or 8 years. And I would laugh at people and be like, yeah, right. I'm just going to be traveling for a year and we'll put it out. They were so right. They were so right. I was definitely schooled there. But I found myself watching a lot of documentaries and animal welfare and all kinds of animals. There are some that to this day I still cannot watch. So when I jumped into this, I said, well, here I'm going to pour my heart and soul and my pocketbook into this. And if people aren't going to want to watch it, what's the point? How do I get people to watch it? Because that's the point, is then why make it, right? So that's the spin I wanted to put, is although we have to show the problem, I wanted to focus on the solution. So it was more about like, where and who and what are people doing across the country that is helping this problem. And I thought, we're going to see some stories of the dogs in the conditions they were either saved in or rescued from. However, we're going to see the outcome. We're going to see what people do to come together. And what I learned, especially because we were shooting between 2015 to 2022, there was a lot of turmoil in our country politically, and that divides a lot of people in many ways. But there was one thing that didn't divide any of us, no matter where we went in the country, and that was the love for those animals and us having the goal of getting them saved, fully vetted, and adopted out to good families. And that moved me so much, because I thought, this is what we want to show, that we can all let go of everything and just focus on the animals, because we worked not just with volunteers. We had to raise money. We had to find funding. We had to do a lot. I sponsored a lot of dog training. So I would love to speak to Brendan about that, because a lot of these dogs are traumatized in certain conditions, or we don't know their background. But we know that if they have the right environment and the right guidance and patience, and that they would thrive. And a lot of them were on kill lists, and we would pull them and be like, what does this dog need? And we would show that in the documentary. So you're going to see a lot of like, oh, we can do that. We can do that. So even though there's a problem, there's a solution. How are we going to find it, and where is it? That's really the point of the documentary.
And we don't need to solve I think Brendan needs to go, sorry, but we don't have to solve. If we decide we want to help with rescue, that doesn't mean we have to rescue all the dogs, right?
You have to
if you help rescue one, you're now part of the solution and not part of the ignorant obstruction or blockage or part of the problem. If you just help rescue one. So if you take one, there's 300 million people in the country. We could rescue
Yes,
300 million dogs, and nobody would have to do very much. But I'm going to take up Brendan's time. But I think that's important to realize that you don't have to be the angel for every dog. And that if one dog is still in bad condition, that doesn't mean you failed. If one dog is in good condition, you've succeeded. And that's a huge thing. Go, Brendan.
Well, identify with the struggle that you're and I commend you for your heart and your push to show people these solutions. It is challenging, and there are a lot of solutions, and there are a lot of things we can do to make sure that dogs coming from the shelter community or rescue or from different environments with trauma can thrive and succeed better in homes. And I think the general population definitely needs to know, I guess, or be informed more about some of the better practices and some of like what to expect and what a new dog really entails and how their behavior can change over time and what to look for. I think that really helps and bodes for their success. At the same time, I'm aware there are some this is a problem that's going to be going on for a long time, and we need more people like yourself to do this, because the dogs are coming from somewhere. Like the breeding problem and the I guess the lack of regulation, even with government oversight through approved kennels and approved breeders, seems to be out of control. And we're on my side, I work on the behavior side, trying to help people fix these problems. And the dogs that are, that ending up in the shelters are coming from places they shouldn't even be ending up in shelters. We have to stymie or stop this somewhere. And I don't know if your documentary touches on that anywhere, but the volume of dogs that are coming in, it's just going to keep trickling down into all the communities, and it's taxing on us. Like, we need to find more solutions. The people I know in rescue are exhausted.
Yes.
And I feel so bad, the amount of work and struggle, and then they're still stuck with these same struggles year after year after year. And the city of LA doesn't seem to be very thoughtful, or any of our local communities doesn't seem to be very helpful for this. So it is overwhelming for me. So I can only imagine how much it is for you. And I just do my best to try to help the one-by-one cases that I get, which aren't always individual, as far as what the dog has been through, where he comes from, who he's going to. And there's obviously questions on my side of, how do we pick the right dog for the right family? Mm-hmm. Do we adopt out every single dog? Can we? Those are realistic questions that I think people need to understand. And those are controversial, obviously.
Right.
I don't have an answer. There's no black and white for that. But there are realities to what we experience. And sometimes this is a tough situation where sweet dogs they're just products of their environment. And we have to somehow find a way to offer them the best care if we're going to be able to do this ongoing, and probably sometimes realize that sometimes society and humanity has probably hurt these animals so much. They don't have the best capacity in every situation. And so that's a tough place for us to kind of look at. And that's how I see things. And it is sad, but it's also, when I talk to people like you, it's encouraging. And I'd love to know more about how we can help, even on a one-by-one, basis, with people in our local communities.
Yeah, I think everything you're saying rings so true, and I feel like I lived through all of those feelings, emotions, and scenarios through the 8 years. It's so hard because our country has so many different layouts. With some people who live in rural areas versus the cities versus suburbia. There's no right or wrong. It's just, it's all like case by case. And now that the numbers are so high, you're so overwhelmed with like, how do we tackle this which is why with my documentary, it was more about showing, okay, what's happening. Like, we went to Illinois, we went to Pennsylvania, California, New York, New Jersey, Georgia, California, Arizona. So that's as far as our pocket could take us. But I was hoping to at least show what's going on in the different areas. Like, we went to Indian reservations in Arizona. The heat alone, now you're dealing with just the environment. Like you had said, the dogs are products of their environment. People don't have enough food or water or supplies for themselves. They're just not going to prioritize the animals. But if one of the number one ways to curb overpopulation is spay neuter, for example, right? So that there is less accidental breeding in these communities that do not even want the dogs, or that can't afford to keep them or vet them, and they just live as street dogs. That's something to look into, but it would have to come from, government initiatives, a lot of funding from these nonprofits, like the ASPCA and the United States Humane Society. I know they have programs that they put out and that they fund certain things, but I don't think these communities know that. And I don't think a lot of them get touched by those initiatives. So it just keeps growing. The accidental litters, Georgia, we saw things in rural Georgia that, it broke me. I adopted 3 dogs from Georgia because of all the dogs. I'm like, I got to take this one home. I'm not leaving this one behind. So,
well, there's There's an interesting point when you compare sort of rural Georgia, rural Missouri, rural anywhere to a native population, because there are a number of, I have a veterinary friend in Philadelphia who takes a team of veterinary technician students and veterinarians to the Navajo reservation every year to do all sorts of medical care, including spay neuters, but they do that to work, and there's funding available for that.
Yes.
And so there's an increased amount of all of that happening. But again, that's more, and it's great that different specialties can do that.
Right.
How do we shift?
But
Do you have some ideas? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joan. Love to hear you.
Say that I even know a lot of rescues that go in and specifically do that in Seattle, outside of Seattle. And I happen to have a reservation dog from Yakima. So I have a res girl. So, and she is badass.
Yeah.
So anyway, but yeah.
Have you had to learn a few different words in her language?
Yeah, she adapted pretty quickly to our language, but cussing is still the same though. But anyway,
and we covered some in Arizona in one of our episodes, and I loved learning about that. We actually touched base with one of the Humane Society's vans who had, like you were describing, Dr. Christina, the different groups that come out to vet puppies and animals on the reservation, because there are those families that want to do the responsible thing. There are families that love their pets and they just don't have the means. And that's another highlight in the documentary, is that it's not a blanket. It's not like everyone's the same, or like even in one area, I connected with a small town, and I'm talking small town, like, I don't know, we have 1,500 people or so in southern Ellaville in Georgia. And this woman runs this little rescue, Pam, and she saves the most amazing dogs. 2 of my dogs are from there. And they are just the town people. They're wonderful. They want to help. They want to make a difference. But because they don't have a shelter and they don't have animal control, there's towns outside of that town that come to dump dogs there because they won't get fined, because they can just drop them off and no one's going to say anything to whomever's dropping them off, because if they did it in their own city or town, maybe they could get fined or someone could report them. So, you know, the problems were so huge, and there's all these little facets that I was just thinking, let's show what the country's like, and let's show, hey, we're in desperate need for everyone to do something. I love the idea earlier that you were talking about having things at work. For example, I have my aunt who started this at her job. She works for Carnival Cruises, and she does a little office pool once a month, and she puts a jar, and anyone who has extra money who wants to just put it in the jar at the end of the month, she'll send it to a local rescue or to the Miami-Dade Animal Shelter. And I know Dr. P did that to help raise funds once for the Southern Georgia Rescue years ago. He put out a little jar and said, if anyone wants to put anything toward that, at the end of that month, whatever was in there was sent to the Georgia Rescue. And as anyone knows, vet bills and food and training, all of that needs to be funded by donors, or these rescues can't function. So every dollar, I say no amount is too small. And we also have $5 Fridays, where I tell people, like, you know, instead of going to Starbucks, maybe you could just like pitch $5. And imagine if everyone gave their favorite rescue $5 on a Friday. It would make a huge difference.
You know what? We have something in my school called the Poor Baby Fund. And so if I catch people saying poor baby, that's $20. And then and we give it to the shelter. And then it's $10 for Bless His Little Heart, because we know that that's kind of for baby. And then also now we've implemented, if you give unsolicited advice, then that's another $20. So we raise a lot of money, and we have students that work for big corporations, so we get the money matched, and then we pick our favorite organization.
Oh, that's so good. That's very good. I like that.
I would go broke. I always give unsolicited advice. I love to tell people what to do. Yeah. So, do you have some solutions in terms of, have you seen some things that work in terms of shifting the thinking of people that I don't care if my dog gets run over. There's another one I can get. I ran into that so much with people from the North who moved into different rural areas around the country, not just in the South. Anything that you've seen work in that area? That seems to be a big chunk.
Well, it's a consumerist idea. This is just another thing we
That's
can
true.
have.
Right.
Utilitarian.
I have a wonderful lady on an episode of our second season. The first episode is focused on pugs and the pug rescue, and the journey of me. You know, I made a documentary and I wanted to make it all about the dogs, and I wasn't putting myself in it at all. And then, you know, running it by friends during the filmmaking process and other filmmakers and producers, they're like, you know, this really needs to be about why you want to do this, because if you get a bunch of non-animal lovers, they're not going to be interested in watching this. Why does this impact you? Why does this make a difference? When we went to the pug rescue, I said, all right, well, I'm going to come clean and I'm going to tell everyone that I bought my first pug from a breeder and I got my second pug from a pet store. And that was what I knew to do and be true in my world at the time, right? But then my eyes opened up to rescue because I didn't even know it existed. And what that did for me in the documentary is allowed me to, I want to include everyone even today in 2023, because I have friends who still buy from breeders. I have friends who will get a dog shipped from Missouri to Los Angeles. I wouldn't do it. I don't think it's the right thing to do, but they're doing that. So my thought was always like, if you will just consider your next dog as a rescue, or if you could just reach out to me, or I could put you in touch with a rescue that would get you the breed or the size or the age or whatever you're looking for, maybe I could open their eyes to that, because it's the consumerism. It's the pug rescue organization. Gwen said, we're such a disposable society. I want this. Oh, I don't want it anymore. I want this. I want this. That has created those people in the scenarios of like, it's like, oh, I don't want it. I can just get another one. So it's not even socioeconomic. It's just a cultural thing that we've adapted in America of, yeah, I'll leave that on the side of the road. And you know, we had one, we covered one dog. He was a beautiful golden shepherd, possibly golden shepherd mix. And he was beautiful, 1.5 years old. And the family came to us and said, we just can't have him anymore. So I sponsored him. We filmed with them in Georgia. They gave him to the rescue. That rescue couldn't keep him in Georgia. So we found a rescue in New York that took him. And he has a wonderful family. I stay in touch with his family. They named him Franklin. He's beautiful and he loves the beach in New York and he's having a great life. That was in the summer where we were shooting. That December, the rescue in Georgia said, look who got a puppy. And it was the same family who had surrendered him to us, who had said, we just don't have time and we can't have a dog anymore. They had gotten their kids a little golden fluff ball for Christmas. So those are tough scenarios. It's tough because people don't want to be told what to do. You know, we have this thing of this is my right. So I would say, is it your right to do wrong? Is it your right to do wrong and inflict this upon another living being because you feel like it and you want to? I don't know. It's a tough, you know, the documentary will definitely leave you soul searching, asking a lot of questions and kind of checking yourself to see where you're at.
That's exactly the crux of the issue. It is our culture. It is our freedom to do whatever the heck we want. It is Americans' belief that it's just a weird culture we have here where anything goes. And if it's something I want now, I can throw away what I had and get more of it. And this is where I'm really frustrated is that I have a really probably a controversial take on this. I think dogs need to be regulated to some extent. I don't think everybody deserves a dog because they want a dog. I think the responsibility of owning or caring for an animal, if you're the guardian of the animal, there's a lot of requirements for being a guardian. In general, we should probably establish what that is. And it's not like you have to, it's not about monetary or any kind of a certain income. It is an understanding that you have to care for this animal. It's not disposable, and that there's serious consequences, and that they have real feelings and they have real healthcare needs, and you might not be able to provide for them. And if we're just breeding dogs for the sake of it and breeding dogs for their looks primarily, we're going to end up with dogs that have behavioral issues because you can't breed for both. That's just not how that works. We're not the almighty. And then I'm going to have dogs, or we're going to have dogs that are going to be, I guess, subjected to going back to the shelter environment or rehomed because they're just dogs that we created for our pleasure. And it's an endless cycle that Americans just don't seem to get. And then I get to work with the family and say, here's what I have as far as our behavior. Well, we have this dog is inbred 5 times. And, there's problems with the breeding. There's problems with, how you actually cared for it when you got it home. And people aren't prepared to handle real behavior that is predictable. And it starts from the breeding and it
actually starts before the breeding. I mean, we know from research that basically stress in the female 6 weeks prior to conception changes the next 3 generations. So this isn't the canine condition. This is the humane condition.
Yeah.
We're all evolving. And one of the things we have to do is we have to understand that things change, but we can't always change them into the ideal immediately. Like, we have to understand it's a process. And I love that Jackie said that, I started out with this viewpoint and nobody on the panel jumped on her and went, "Oh, she adopted a dog from a breeder. I would never talk to her. Well, let's cancel her for that." What we have to understand is that we all did things that were less optimal in the past.
Yes.
The key is what we're doing now. And we have to, if we really love, like, what does love do? Like, love connects, looks, and in that connection, it sees things and then it chooses to act in ways that make things better, not just for the person who's looking, but for the person that's seen or for the animal that's seen. And rescue really has 2 sides. Like, you don't rescue a dog without rescuing yourself, because some aspect of you that brings yourself to that point, and then those brown eyes look up at you and go like, isn't there something else besides just sending me to the gas chamber? Isn't there something else you can do for me? And then all of a sudden you adopt a dog. And then having adopted the dog, you become part of the solution again. And that sounds contrite, but it's really physics. It's really coming from a place of non-existence into a state of more rich existence, and realizing that you're not an invalid, you're not lacking value, and neither is the thing that you see. And just because you don't see a way to fix it all, you can fix some part of it. And that's what Jackie does. And that's what this show is about. And that's what everybody that's on this panel is about, is like, how do we reach out, contact people? That's what love does. Love does that. And just do that. Just do that. That's all.
And I think that's a big educational piece as well, because we've, basically we have bred animals for our needs. Every single breed of dog, every single breed of cat, every single breed of horse is based on something more that we wanted from them. And then we've created a genocide with the shelter.
Basically. That's
I agree. I really want to thank you all for talking about love at the heart of this. Jackie, I can't thank you enough for telling the whole story and for looking at it holistically. I know we appreciate the work that you've done, and I'd like to know more about your organization. If people are interested in getting in touch with you, what are some of the initiatives and how do they get in touch with you?
Sure. So first, I'll tell you that as of July, we're going to have every episode of the documentary available on our YouTube channel. So it'll be the Canine Condition. You can go to thecaninecondition.com. You'll be able to click on there and watch every episode. I think there's something for everybody, which is why they're short 10 to 25-minute episodes. And that's our goal, was to touch on a little bit of everything, because if one thing rings true with each person, like Dr. P said, there's 300 million people in the country, maybe we can have that positive impact on this crisis, and for beings that we love, that we advocate for. So through thecaninecondition.com, people can reach out to me. They can email us. And I'm very involved with many rescue organizations around the country. I always welcome, if people have an interest in a certain area of rescue, adoption, nutrition. I'm big on, dog nutrition. My gosh, we could have like 5 episodes with you guys because I could talk forever. But I'm happy to guide people and give them suggestions also through emails. So that would be the way to get in touch with me.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Jackie, for helping us raise our animal IQ. And I know I speak for this incredible panel. We've all had ideas in this episode of how we can contribute and do the work where we stand. If you'd like to be a part of this conversation at home, you can email your questions to our website. And again, thank you for this inspired episode. It reminds me of the quote, "Home is where the dog runs to greet you." We'll see you again soon. Until then, love your pets. Medical information obtained from our website or the live show is not intended to be a substitute for professional care. If your pet has or you suspect they might have an illness or other medical condition, you should consult a healthcare provider. The opinions expressed on this TV program are not necessarily those of Smart Pet Talk, this TV show, or their sponsors. For all questions or info on sponsorship, email us at info@smartpettalk.com or visit our website at smartpettalk.com.